Hello. Um, so there was an incel forum thread recently where the OP argued it was the user Incel King with no space, if I recall correctly, and he argued that the desire for validation is not biological and it's socialized. And I have to say I disagree. I'm not going to address this argument directly, but I'll respond to what I see as a general attempt by lots of incels to invalidate validation. He basically argued that we are socialized to want women to love us and so on through the media and feminism and shit like that, and that you're not black-pilled if you disagree with that, with the want for validation being social and not biological. Anyways, there's a portion of the incel community that goes to great lengths to make these kinds of arguments. It's a constantly recurring argument that I've gotten into myself at times with someone that I talk to outside of this channel and the incel community, who is an incel and watches my channel and shit like that. Honestly, I just think there's a lot of people out there who hate the idea of wanting validation, and they see it as a weak thing, so they disassociate from it as much as possible, even though ultimately everyone wants validation. The real weakness, to me, is coping this hard as to deny the importance of validation in the life of a human. We are a social species, and they tend to look at things in a vacuum and compartmentalize. So biology and socializing are linked. We're a social species, as I said. Thus, validation is important, since validation basically means acceptance. Sex is the ultimate form of social validation. It's literally your genes being accepted and propagated. Even with contraception, the primitive urge is still there, and the wiring in the brain is still there. What's more validating than somebody accepting your penis into their body? Shit is all connected. And no, I'm not an addict necessarily. If I'm addicted to sex and women or whatever, then everyone's addicted to something. You're addicted to life then. You can't quit life, right? Alright, so you're addicted. I don't mind the negative connotation of the word though, so whatever. I'm an addict. Like, what is even the purpose in separating biology from socializing? The argument is broken from Jump Street. Those two things are integrated in the first place, just like sex and validation are integrated. They can't be separated. The most basic definition of validate is acceptance, which brings me to another thing I hate about this argument. These dudes try to make it seem like anyone who wants validation is some megalomaniacal, narcissistic egoist. Just wanting to be accepted in the most basic ways doesn't mean you want to be worshipped like a god. If anything, assuming that in others seems like egoistic projection. That's basically putting any regular loner who'd be perfectly happy with his looks match even if she was a bitch on the same level as Elliot Rodger. A corollary that you see to the anti-validation argument is that sex is all that matters and chasing validation is for suckers. I still haven't really seen an argument as to why prostitution is considered lesser than sex with a girl that actually likes you. And again, why not just jerk off and be happy? If validation doesn't matter, why even argue against it? Why not keep your arguments to yourself? Because you want validation. That's another thing. A lot of these guys making this argument probably haven't really experienced being with a girl that really likes them, so they don't really know the difference. But to be fair, I've never straight up paid for a hooker, so maybe I could experience that and find it isn't much different from the sex I've had before. I mean, you do end up, whether directly or indirectly, you do end up paying these bitches in some form or another, whether it's time or buying dinner or whatever. It probably depends on the individual. I can't help but think these dudes are coping though. Notice it's people who don't get validation who decry the seeking of validation. You think Chad is sitting around having arguments about this kind of shit? No, because he doesn't need the cope. You guys really think that a person's quality of life isn't affected by the level of validation they get? Even if you could look at validation in a vacuum, it has clear psychological effects. We are social creatures. This is how we evolved. And you can't look at validation in a vacuum because it will always have hard material benefits, such as job offers and shit like that. This shit's all integrated, man. It's not even just about fucking bitches. But even with the prostitute, you're still seeking validation because validation and sex are the same thing. And it will never be as satisfying as a woman who actually wants to fuck. You're basically paying for validation. You're paying to feel like Chad for a few minutes, and it doesn't even fucking work. Just imagine how fucked up a person's life has to be for them to argue down their own need for validation. I mean, Jesus. A girl likes a guy and it's like when a girl likes a guy and finds out that the guy doesn't like her, and she starts dissing him. I don't like you anyways, ugly ass nigga. Individuals who don't receive social interactions are more depressed. They're more prone to a drug addiction, etc. I'm pretty sure, that's true. People literally get dopamine hits from social media likes. Like, come on, this is human nature. Get over it. It'd be more valid to argue that sub-7 men shouldn't seek validation because they'll almost never get it, and it becomes a game of diminishing returns. It'd even be acceptable to argue that humanity should try to be above such human needs, but that's the transhumanist argument then. The shedding of the ego and all that bullshit. Everyone has an ego. To live is to have an ego. You want to shed your ego? Go jump off a roof. But even dead people can have egos if you really want to go there. Because technically your spirit lives on or whatever. Okay, so why is it bad to be a cuck then if sex is all that matters? Who cares if some other guy is fucking your girl as long as you get to? See, this is the materialist mentality. Why would you care about being the only man in a girl's life unless you want, wait for it, validation? This is the pimp mindset. I was having a conversation with about this recently. Actually, it was yesterday, literally. And this guy had a pimp mindset. He was like, I don't care if she sleeps with other dudes because there's more to a relationship than sex, and I don't want to be alone, and I want to have somebody there for me. It was more detailed than that, but that was the gist of it in my interpretation. As we got further into the conversation, it basically boiled down to, okay, bitches ain't shit, and all women are promiscuous anyways, but I need a woman in my life. This guy, as far as I can tell, has mommy issues. I think he even said so at one point. But anyways, if we know that all women ain't shit, we might as well exploit them for what we can. We might as well benefit from the whorishness. That's the pimp mentality right there. And I'm not gonna lie, it makes sense. Think about it. Incels, red pillars, PUA, a lot of these male-centric ideologies, they come down to the hidden hope that there's some bitch out there who ain't an ain't shit bitch. And we all wish there was. Some men want that so much they'll even invent it. There are dudes married to cam whores and strippers and girls that they know for a fact got blown out in college. But there aren't any non-ain't shit bitches. We must abandon all hope in this regard and cynically pursue our own selfish interests. It's sad, but this is what it comes down to in a materialistic world. There's no religious union of man and female. It's a spiritually dead world. And maybe it always was, and we just created copes like religion and God to deal with it, and higher ideals and so forth, which eventually became the American capitalist way of life, and then we realized that that ain't shit either, etc., 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 ad infinitum.